I can still hear the clang of the gavel echoing in my ears, a harsh beat in the chaos of my mind. I sat there, heart racing, engulfed by a suffocating sense of betrayal and disbelief. This is not how it ends, I whispered to myself, my voice shaky and fragile as I glanced around the courtroom. As the judge pronounced the ruling in favor of my estranged husband, a ghost in my life for 5 long years, I could feel my world crumbling beneath my feet once again. I had thought I was past the pain, but the truth was I was still entangled in his web of lies, and now they were being woven into my own. The courtroom faded, and the atmosphere shifted to a sunlit day from years back, a time when blissful ignorance shielded me from the darkness to come. I remember it well, the day we moved into our charming little home, a modest but cozy 2-bedroom place that radiated warmth. The air was fragrant with freshly baked cookies, the kind that somehow made everything feel right in the world. I had burst with pride as I placed a homemade casserole in the oven, my heart fluttering with the promise of a happy life ahead. "Can you believe it? This is our home, just ours," I exclaimed, spinning around to face him, my eyes sparkling with excitement. "It's perfect, babe," he replied, his voice smooth like honey, his smile intoxicating. He took my hand, squeezing it reassuringly. I felt safe, cherished, the embodiment of everything I had ever dreamed about in love. Yet, with every passing moment, the darkness crept in, unseen at first. Each small disagreement slowly grew like a storm on the horizon. Amusing anecdotes about my supposed shortcomings soon became passive-aggressive undercurrents. "Why can't you just do things right?" he would snap, his tone cutting like a sharp knife. It started with little comments, harmless enough at first, but soon escalated into something more sinister. I found myself withdrawing from friends, a slow fade into isolation that seemed like a necessary step to prove my love for him. The late-night phone calls turned into silent dinners, the laughter fading from our home. I remember inviting my best friend Lisa over for brunch one bright Saturday morning, the sun pouring in through the windows. "Are you sure it's okay for me to come?" she had asked hesitantly, eyeing my husband with an expression both wary and concerned. "Of course. We'd love to see you. Right, babe?" I had looked up at him, forcing a smile. His response was nonchalant, as he shrugged and murmured something about having plans to handle. That was the last time Lisa ever came. I could feel the weight of her concerns settle heavily on my shoulders, each unspoken word a reminder that I was stepping into a darkened chamber I couldn't escape. As time wore on, I began to dread the idea of socializing, my confidence slowly eroding under layers of his criticism. I became submerged in the world he crafted for me, a world where I was financially trapped, emotionally bound, an anchor dragging him down. The day I discovered he had been lying about his finances was a bitter pill to swallow. I had stumbled upon a mountain of unopened bills stuffed into a dark corner of our closet, my hands trembling as I unsealed one of the envelopes. "Past due," it read in bold letters. My heart raced as I sat on the floor, surrounded by the ghosts of unaddressed debts and lies. "Why didn't you tell me about this?" I confronted him that night, fear twisting my gut. "Because you wouldn't understand," he snapped. The familiar sneer marred his lips. "You'd just freak out and make it worse. I can handle this. We're a team," I pleaded, desperation leaking into my voice. He stepped closer, eyes darkening, the air growing thick with tension. "A team does not panic. You don't know how to manage anything. You think you can just wish problems away." I felt the weight of his words press down on me, suffocating in the veil of confusion. "I just wanted us to work together," I murmured, retreating as he loomed over me, the realization settling like lead in my stomach. I was alone in this, completely and utterly on my own. This was the beginning of my metamorphosis into something less like a partner and more like a prisoner. My love for him dictated my world, a world where stepping out of line felt like a sin, and I began to undermine my own needs for the sake of keeping peace. As I stood frozen in that courtroom, what rang loudest wasn't the gavel slamming down, but the ghost of that love, twisted and tainted. I thought I had at last escaped the labyrinth he constructed around me, but now, out of the ashes of his deceit, I found myself staring into the haunting mirror of unresolved pain. Image prompt. The protagonist is a woman in her early 30s, with soft brown hair that falls just past her shoulders, She has deep blue eyes that reflect a storm of emotions: fear, hurt, sadness. She's wearing an elegant but simple light blue dress that contrasts against the darkness of the courtroom. The setting is dimly lit, oppressing, with wooden furniture and a heavy air of tension. A gavel rests ominously on the podium, while shadows flicker across the walls, reflecting the haunting memories of her past. I spent months in a haze, grappling with my emotions and the fragments of my fragmented past. The gavel's sound still pulsed in my ears, but it was the emptiness of my home that felt the most unbearable. I was left alone in that quiet house, surrounded by memories tainted with deceit and shadows lurking around every corner. That was until I stumbled upon a piece of evidence that would shatter the fabricated walls he had built. One dreary afternoon, while sorting through the remnants of our shared life in search of answers, I noticed a folded piece of paper peeking out from between two thick volumes of debt statements on my desk. My heart thudded heavily in my chest as I curled my fingers around it, sensing that this could be the key to unraveling the tangled mess of lies that had defined my existence for so long. I unfolded the receipt carefully, the paper crinkling as I released it from its prison. The logo of a small repair shop caught my eye. It was a place I had never heard of before. The date stamped at the top was only days before I had seen him on television, alive and well, living a life I had thought was buried with his past. The anxiety in my gut twisted tighter as I scanned the numbers. It was for an expensive part, something for a luxury vehicle. A vehicle I certainly couldn't afford on my paltry budget. Why would he be buying this? I muttered to myself, heart racing as a million thoughts spiraled in my mind. Why had he gone to a place I didn't recognize? What was he hiding? I could feel my detective instincts flare up, igniting a fire within the ashes of my despair. What if he was still lying? What if he hadn't just vanished but had orchestrated the perfect escape, leaving me behind to deal with this lingering nightmare? The chaos around me faded as the thirst for clarity rose to the forefront, and my thoughts locked on a single mission. I needed to know. My resolve solidified, and I decided to reach out to my old college friend, Jenna, an attorney who had always believed in my ability to triumph against adversity. She'd helped me with legal matters in the past, but my tight-lipped concerns about my ex-husband were always cloaked in uncertainty. My fingers trembling with both excitement and dread, I picked up my phone, dialing her number with urgency. "Hey, it's me." The familiar sound of her voice brought some assurance that I was not as alone as I had felt. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her tone immediately shifting to concern. "No, actually. Need your help. It's about him." "What do you mean?" I was reluctant at first, the words caught in my throat. But with a deep breath, I began to spill everything. The gavel, the courtroom, the receipt, and the storm brewing inside me. As I spoke, I felt the fog lift a little more, transforming my anxiety into determination. "Okay, listen," she replied after a long pause. "You need to gather more information. If he really faked his death, it's a complex situation. I can't help you unless we can find proof." "Proof? Like what?" I asked, feeling both hopeful and lost. "Anything you can find, any discrepancies, anything at all. If you can dig deep enough, we can turn this upside down." As she spoke, an idea ignited within me. What if I followed him? I know it sounds ridiculous, but there's a chance he could slip up. "That could work," Jenna replied, her voice laced with cautious enthusiasm. "But I want you to have a plan, and don't go alone. I can help you hire a private investigator. It's safer that way." "Right, I want to do this. I need to exorcise this ghost," I declared, a determination fueling the words I barely recognized as my own. The following day, with Jenna's guidance, I hired a private investigator named Mark. He was rugged and unassuming, with sharp eyes that could easily detect the incongruities lurking beneath the surface. Over coffee in a small diner, I relayed everything I knew. The twists and turns of my fractured life flowed freely, and I felt the burden shift slightly off my shoulders. "I can track his movements and gather intel without him even knowing," Mark assured me, nodding as he scribbled notes into a faded leather notebook. "If he's back in town, we'll find out what he's been up to." "Thank you, Mark," I whispered, overwhelmed by a surge of gratitude. The investigation blossomed over the coming weeks, transforming my days into a whirlwind. Every time I received a text or call from Mark, my heart raced, combining hope and dread into a roller coaster of emotions. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself on edge, waiting for news with the energy of a hunter stalking prey. Small snippets emerged, leading to larger connections. I watched with growing determination as the pieces fell into place in this vast puzzle that was proving to be as complex and wretched as I'd dreaded. But my heart raced with a mix of fear and a strange kind of thrill, knowing that I was not just a victim anymore. I was becoming the author of my own story. With every turn of events, I could feel my resolve hardening, the vestiges of self-doubt giving way to the emerging warrior within me. I couldn't back down now. Image prompt. The protagonist is a woman in her early 30s, with soft brown hair pulled into a loose ponytail, revealing determined blue eyes. She sits in a bustling diner, surrounded by the aroma of fresh coffee and greasy comfort food. Her expression is a mix of anxiety and fierce determination as she speaks to a rugged investigator. His strong frame leans across the table, his attention focused on her words. The diner is filled with worn wooden booths, and sunlight streams through the window, illuminating the tension and hope in the air. I could feel the heaviness of the air surrounding me as I drew closer to the dingy coffee shop where Mark had arranged for me to meet my husband. My heart was pounding like a war drum, mix of adrenaline-fueled dread and fierce determination coursing through my veins. The details of my investigation weighed on my mind like a crumbling statue, but what jolted my focus was the imminent confrontation that awaited me. I had seen him on the news just days ago, looking healthier and happier than I remembered. A chill ran down my spine at the thought. There was a small piece of evidence I had uncovered that could crack everything wide open. Mark and I had agreed it was time for me to confront the lie head-on. The moment I stepped inside the coffee shop, the scent of roasted beans mixed with the sweet smell of pastries hit me. The jittering energy of caffeine-fueled people filled the air, but all I could focus on was the electric anticipation bubbling within me. My eyes darted around, landing on a booth where he sat casually sipping coffee, his face unrecognizable yet somehow familiar. "Alex?" I approached hesitantly, my heart racing, a hyperfocus blurring my peripheral vision. He looked up, eyes widening in surprise. "Oh, this is unexpected. I didn't think you would actually come." "Of course I would," I replied, mustering as much bravado as I could while fighting the quaking in my knees. "We need to talk about your lies. You faked your death." His expression morphed into something unreadable, a flicker of concern mixed with feigned confusion. "What are you talking about?" he said, a mocking smile creeping across his lips. "Why would you think that?" I could feel my throat tightening as I slid into the booth opposite him, the faux leather cold against my skin. "There was a receipt, Alex, a receipt for a car repair before you were gone. You didn't just disappear. You lived. Do you realize how this has torn my life apart?" My voice trembled with frustration. His demeanor shifted abruptly. He leaned back, crossing his arms. "This is ridiculous," he scoffed, indifference washing over him like a storm cloud. "What? You think you're some kind of detective now? I'm alive. You've driven yourself crazy chasing ghosts." No," I stammered, guilt latching onto my throat. "I've done my research." "I followed you. That's stalking," he interrupted, a sharp edge to his words, cold and pointed. "Maybe it's time you seek therapy instead of coming here pretending to confront me. You sound paranoid, honestly. Don't turn this around on me." "You left me drowning," I shot back, desperation making my fingers twitch against the table. "You abandoned me? I thought I was going to lose everything, Alex." He leaned forward, an invasive intensity in his eyes that made my skin crawl. "You think you can handle the truth? You couldn't manage your own life, let alone mine," he spat. "You were always so needy and insecure. This sounds like one of your wild fantasies, and frankly, it's pathetic." The sting of his words was palpable. Each syllable he tossed out was like a punch to my gut, momentarily winding me and sowing doubt in my mind. "I'm not the one pretending. I came here because I want closure, to talk about what you did. How about you close that mouth of yours?" He shot back, each word dripping with venom. "You're looking for drama when you should focus on your own life. You've become obsessed with me. This isn't healthy." Guilt slithered around my mind, an unwelcome companion. Had I really crossed a line? I felt trapped in his web of gaslighting, struggling to keep my footing as he unraveled the very fabric of my reality. I'm not obsessed, I whispered, the weight of shame heavy on my chest. But he smirked, relishing my hesitation. See? You can't even argue your own case. It's almost like I know you're better than you know yourself. The coffee shop buzzed with laughter and clinking cups, a stark contrast to the crushing silence growing between us. I could feel the walls of the booth closing in, my heart racing while my mind spun in confusion. What do you want from me, Alex? I demanded, tears welling in my eyes, falling toward hopelessness. All I wanted was an explanation. He shifted, leaning back with a nonchalant demeanor. I want you to let this go. I don't owe you anything. If you keep digging, you'll only embarrass yourself. In that moment, I wasn't just confronting my husband. I was confronting years of stagnation, confusion, and self-doubt. Trapped by his reckless manipulation, I felt smaller under the weight of his words. I was terrified my heart would fail me at any moment, racked with the agony of confusion. Do you think this is over? I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. You can't run forever. I will find proof, and when I do, or what? He challenged, leaning forward again menacingly. You'll come back here and cry some more. I wouldn't let you ruin my life again. Be careful. You're the one playing with fire, not me. Watching him, an icy chill settled around my heart. I realized I wouldn't emerge victoriously. He was right about one thing. This wasn't healthy. The realization crashed through me like a wave striking ashore, overwhelming, disruptive, threatening to drown me. I was in too deep, and Alex had turned the tables on me in ways I hadn't anticipated. I only managed to nod weakly and stand up, the booth wanting to hold me down as I left. My inside felt like a battlefield of lingering anguish, regret, and uncertainty for each step I took toward the exit. My heart felt heavier, suffocating under layers of confusion. Somehow, in that messy cafe, I had turned into a casualty of my own love, realizing that this battle wasn't just against him, but also against the remnants of the person I had once been. Image prompt. The protagonist is a woman in her early 30s. Her soft brown hair loosely falling around her face, her blue eyes wide with confusion and hurt. She's sitting across from her husband in a dimly lit coffee shop booth, a pile of paperwork mixed with bills and her trembling hands resting on the table. Her expression is vulnerable but determined, while he leans back smirking, a stark contrast to her evident distress. The shop is filled with colorful coffee mugs, emitting warm steam, while patrons nearby remain oblivious, their laughter a distant echo amidst the tension at the booth. The next few days spiraled into a vortex of despair that I could hardly comprehend. I had gone from being the investigator of my life's dark mystery to a crumpled heap of anguish, stripped of my hope, and left to wander the barren land of my uncertainty. Yesterday's confrontation with Alex had left me feeling hollowed out. It was like all the air had been vacuumed from my lungs, and now I was left gasping for breath, drowning in the reality of my situation. I sat in my living room one cold evening, the light of the setting sun creeping through my curtains, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Each flicker of sunlight illuminated more than just the room. It shone a spotlight on the reality I had tried to ignore. I was trapped, tangled in this web Alex had spun, and now on the verge of collapse. Margaret, he barked from somewhere off to the side, his voice echoed like thunder. I could hear the familiar sound of keys jiggling in the locker. Sound that used to bring warmth into my heart had turned into an omen I dreaded, beckoning trouble with every click. I swallowed hard as he walked into the room, the scent of cheap cologne mixed with cigarette smoke trailing behind him. In that moment, the knot in my stomach twisted tighter. I felt it, the anxiety bubbling to the surface, urging me to run but also paralyzing me in place. What is it now? I managed, keeping my voice steady despite the quiver lurking underneath. He stepped closer, an arrogant grin stretching across his face. You need to pack your things, he said, matter-of-factly, as if it were the most natural request in the world. Pack? What are you? Why? Because I can't deal with you anymore. You're nothing but a burden. I faked my death to escape this life, and now that I'm back, I can't have you dragging me down. My heart sank. You can't just kick me out. This apartment is half mine. And after everything... Oh, spare me the sob story, he snapped, his tone cold as ice. You've only made my life worse. I thought you'd be stronger after everything we went through, but you're just a weak, pathetic mess. I'm done carrying you. What about the debts? The ones you left me to handle? I wailed, desperation creeping into my voice. He waved his hand dismissively, the smirk never leaving his lips. Those are your problems now. You can figure it out on your own. It's not my fault you can't manage your life. As he laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in the corners of my mind, I realized something crucial. I had lost everything. My marriage, my home, my control over my life, all were swept away by the storm he had conjured. Please, I'll find a way to pay you back. Just give me some time. I can work something out, I said, my voice breaking, tears threatening to spill. Time? Time doesn't work for people like me, Margaret, he sneered. You're not entitled to anything but the consequences of your own stupidity. Suddenly, it hit me like a tidal wave. The gravity of my situation crashed down upon me, dragging me under. You're doing this because you know I can't fight back, don't you? You think I'm just going to lie down and take it. He shrugged, leaning back against the doorframe. If that's what you want to do, then go ahead. Just don't expect me to help you. You're on your own now. With that, he turned on his heel and left, his laughter fading as the door slammed shut behind him, echoing through the hollow space that had once felt like home. I stood there, paralyzed, the darkness creeping closer. Hours passed and the weight of isolation settled in. I sat on the floor amidst scattered boxes, remnants of a life I couldn't reclaim. My phone buzzed beside me, the familiar contact flashing across the screen. Jenna, my old friend and lawyer. Hey, it's me, I whispered, swallowing the lump in my throat. What's going on, Margaret? You sound off. I could feel the tremors in my voice. I just lost everything, Jenna. He kicked me out. I don't have any money left, no job. I'm terrified. Breathe, okay? We'll work this out. Start by finding a safe place to stay. You can always come to my house until we can sort things out. You don't understand, I stammered, panic clawing at my chest. I can't go back to where it all started. It's like living in a prison of memories. Sometimes it's the only way to survive this. Your safety is more important than comfort. Please don't be stubborn. I'll be there for you, but you have to help yourself. I hung up the phone and sat in silence, encased in my own thoughts. I had lost everything I loved, and now the world felt like it was closing in on me. In that dark void where insecurities and failures collided, it became clear I needed to pull myself together, to summon whatever strength resided within, because if I didn't, I wouldn't survive. As the night settled in, the cold air seeped through the thin walls, wrapping around me like a shroud of despair. If I allowed this to swallow me whole, Alex's victory would be complete. Still, somewhere beneath the layers of fear and shame, a spark flared. I owed it to myself to fight back, even if it seemed impossible. I spent the rest of the night searching for places to stay, shelters, friends' couches, anything that would keep me from falling off the edge into the abyss of my despair. The flickering light of hope amidst the vast darkness spurred my determination. Don't let them win, I whispered to myself, each syllable a quiet hymn of resilience. A promise. They thought they had destroyed me. If you hate bullies, hit the like button. Image prompt. The protagonist is a woman in her early 30s, with disheveled soft brown hair and red-rimmed blue eyes that reflect vulnerability and determination. She sits on the cold floor of her dimly lit living room surrounded by open boxes, clenching her phone in one hand. Her expression is a mixture of pain and defiance, with shadows casting around the room as the remnants of her shattered life loom large behind her. There's a stark contrast between the fading light outside and the heavy darkness inside, representing her struggle for hope amid chaos. The day I found out about the hidden secret was like a bad dream that suddenly snapped into crystal clear focus. It was a cold morning, and I had just settled in at my makeshift desk of flimsy table in the cramped corner of my friend Jenna's living room. The air was thick with the smell of coffee, and the hum of city life seeped through the frosted window panes like distant whispers of hope. Jenna had promised me she would come over and help connect the dots, and as I sipped my coffee, the warmth sliding down my throat offered a temporary comfort. But deep down, a gnawing fear loomed. What if there was truly nothing left to uncover? What if Alex's lies were too entrenched to untangle? Just as I finished that thought, the door swung open, and Jenna entered with her usual brisk energy, carrying a stack of papers and a fierce determination in her eyes. Okay, I didn't just come empty-handed, she said, a grin breaking across her face. I found something big. What kind of something? I hoped my voice didn't betray the tremor of anticipation. Let's sit. She settled into the chair across from me, sliding the papers onto the table. I dug into some public records linked to the repair shop you found on that receipt. I leaned forward, my pulse quickening as I felt a spark of excitement. And turns out this shop was tied to an underground network, money laundering, shady business deals, the works. It gets even weirder. She fidgeted with the papers, glancing between them and me. I found a connection to a man named Victor Reynolds. He has a criminal background, one that aligns time-wise with when Alex disappeared. Wait, I interrupted, a sense of disbelief creeping in. Are you saying Alex is tied to organized crime? Essentially, yes, she said firmly. He was living under a different name, most likely to cover up his past. He faked his death to escape the police and the debt collectors. While you were left to fight your way through, he probably slipped into another life. The world spun around me for a moment, the weight of her words pressing in like a vice. But why wouldn't he come back? Why flaunt himself on the news? That's the million-dollar question, she mused. There's likely something deeper, a reason he needed to fake his own death that could tie directly to the crime network. But we need proof, something solid that can rip that facade apart. Proof ... I echoed, vision blurring with thoughts of all that Alex had appended. I felt a surge of determination building inside me. Where do we begin? We tracked down Victor Reynolds, Jenna said, her voice steady. If we can find something definitive linked to him in connection to Alex, we may have what we need to expose Alex for who he really is. This could destroy him. Okay, so how do we do that? I paused, biting my lip with unease. I've got nothing left. No connections, nothing. You do have connections, Margaret, Jenna insisted, leaning forward. Your instincts, your drive. You've come so far, and I'm not letting you go back to being a victim. We need to dig, use whatever resources we can, hire a private investigator if necessary. The burn of her words settled into my bones. Then yes, I'll do whatever it takes. I took a shaky breath. Let's figure out how to pull him back down from whatever pedestal he thinks he's sitting on. Jenna nodded, her determination matching my own. Start reaching out to contacts he's had, friends, business associates, anyone who might have a connection to him recently. We'll need to be careful, though. He has his ways of sniffing out trouble, and we can't tip him off. I'll get in touch with Mark, the private investigator, to help surveil Victor and see where he really disappears. With each passing minute, the shadows of dread and despair began to lighten. I could feel a renewed sense of purpose coursing through me. I was no longer just a victim stumbling through the darkness. I was becoming an action-oriented player in this gritty game. Over the next few days, I put my newfound intent into action, connecting dots while Jenna kept the investigations rolling. I contacted former acquaintances of Alex, recounting our stories while the warmth of coffee hung thick in the air of cramped cafes. Each conversation brought me closer, but also deeper into the web of deceit that had bound my life for so long. A week later, Jenna called as I was walking home, her voice ringing with excitement. "You're not going to believe this," she began. "We found out Victor's been living across town. And guess who's been spotted hanging out with him? The nightclubs. Have the address. Let's go," I instructed abruptly, heart racing with a mixture of exhilaration and fear. "Let's catch this ghost." She agreed, and as we rolled up to the club's neon-lit entrance, the air heavy with bass beats and the scent of cheap perfume, I fought the urge to turn back. This was it. This was the moment where everything could change. "Ready?" Jenna whispered, her gaze scanning the crowd. "As I'll ever be," I whispered back, my heart thundering in my chest. I squared my shoulders and stepped inside, prepared to uncover the truth and face down the man who had haunted my life. Image prompt. The protagonist is a woman in her early 30s, with soft brown hair pulled into a messy bun, wearing a dark leather jacket over a simple white shirt. Her blue eyes shine with determination, reflecting both fear and resolve. She stands in a dimly lit nightclub full of colorful strobe lights, the rhythmic pulse of music reverberating around her. At her side is her ally, Jenna, tall and composed with curly black hair cascading around her shoulders. Her focus intense as they prepare for confrontation amid the swirling chaos of bodies dancing around them. I had to bide my time to strategize carefully as I planned my trap. In a dizzying haze of fury and anticipation, I understood that my only chance to bring Alex back into my life albeit against his will, was to pretend to be defeated. I had to lower his defenses until he believed the ghost of his past was gone for good. As the weeks passed, I became a ghost in my own existence, a shadow that drifted unnoticed as I meticulously pieced together my scheme. Jenna and I closely monitored Victor Reynolds' movements, waiting for the right moment to strike. It was at an extravagant fundraiser, an annual gala known for lavish displays of wealth and influence, where I finally would play my cards. The glitzy atmosphere pulsed with glamorous lights. The soft hum of laughter and glasses clinking enveloped me as I stepped into the venue. Walls draped in gold fabric gleamed under the soft lighting, but beneath that opulence, the tension in my chest clenched tighter. Jenna stood by my side as we entered, dressed to impress in a sleek black gown that seemed to swallow the darkness surrounding her, effortlessly drawing attention. "This is going to be perfect," she whispered, adjusting her hair. "Just remember to keep it cool while we find our prey." Gulping down my anxiety, I nodded. "I know I can do this. I need to show Alex that I'm not the weak person he left behind." As the evening progressed, I kept my ears open, scanning the crowd for whispers of familiar conversations. I spotted Alex, leaning against the bar, laughing with a group of affluent faces, his new life glittering before my very eyes. He wore a tailored suit that did nothing to hide the arrogance in his posture. "Ready?" Jenna nudged me gently, her eyes glistening with excitement. "Ready?" I replied, taking a brave step forward. My heart pounded louder each moment, reminding me why I was here. "Hey, everyone," I greeted, keeping my voice light but filled with feigned gaiety as I approached the bar. "Can you believe how extravagant this year's gala is?" Alex turned, masking shock behind a mask of cockiness. "Well, look who decided to show up. Didn't expect to see you here, Margaret. Thought you'd been too busy wallowing since I left." "Oh, I said, putting on the most saccharine smile. "Sometimes life gives you a chance to emerge from the shadows." The group around him chuckled, and I could see the glint of uncertainty in his eyes, but he quickly masked it with his nonchalant demeanor. "Such a surprise to see you out of your little bubble." "Life moves on, Alex," I replied, watching how he bristled at my words. I figured it was time for me to explore the world beyond our quaint little life. "Good for you," he grunted. I could tell he didn't expect this assertive side of me, and I felt a rush of excitement surge through my veins. In fact, I've been doing quite well. After exchanging a few more jabs, I turned my focus back to the crowd, subtly studying Victor Reynolds, who had been chatting animatedly with a few businessmen across the floor like he owned the place. I nudged Jenna with my elbow. "There he is, standing tight with those men. Keep your cool." "Just a few more minutes," she whispered back, scanning the room with keen observation. "Excuse me, Alex," I interrupted, feigning innocence. "Will you excuse me for a moment? I'm going to grab a drink." "Sure, whatever helps you cope," he replied dismissively. As I stepped away, I felt the intensity of the gathered energy around me build. The vibrant atmosphere was electrifying. I could almost taste the anticipation in the air as I made my way toward Victor. "Victor Reynolds," I said, signaling my approach. "I don't believe we've met." He turned, his face morphing into an amused grin as he scrutinized me. "And you are?" "I'm Margaret," I said, maintaining a polite smile. "I'm quite curious about your connection to Alex." "Funny you should mention him," Victor replied, swirling his drink thoughtfully. "We've shared some common interests. My intrigue was piqued as it became dangerously clear how entwined they were. Behind his confident facade, I could sense the tension brewing. Just then, Jenna surfaced beside me, her presence grounding me. "Hey, Victor, can you tell me more about your recent ventures?" The trio of businessmen around Victor shifted their attention to Jenna, leaving me ample opportunity to meld in the conversation. Victor's eyes darted between us, mischief dancing behind them. "Are you looking to invest?" "More like to know who to steer clear of," Jenna asserted boldly. Alex isn't exactly a man of his word. Tension crackled in the air, and I could sense that Alex was now aware of our little gathering. I turned slightly to catch a glimpse of him, and I was right. Apprehension washed over his face as he realized we were onto something. "Ladies, it sounds like you're fishing for dirt," Victor chuckled, though his eyes darkened slightly. "Alex is a good friend of mine." "Is he?" I countered, feeling a flame of courage ignite while I held Victor's gaze. "Then you'd surely know what he's been hiding, wouldn't you?" The atmosphere shifted palpably as Jenna spoke. Don't you think it's time for Alex to come clean about his past, about who he really is? The truth has a way of coming out, especially when it seems criminal in nature. Victor's cool demeanor wavered and the tension felt palpable. What are you implying? Oh, nothing, just that his little charade won't last, I said, leaning in deliberately. It never does. Suddenly I felt a surge of vindication, like a magnet drawing everyone's gaze. I almost relished in Alex's simmering anger from afar, his face contorting as he realized we had ensnared him in a public trap from which he couldn't easily escape. But beneath the surface, I was torn. Was I ready to watch him fall? Utterly humiliated? A hint of empathy bubbled within. As Victor smirked, the tension reached a breaking point. This was my moment. I had to decide. Forgive or destroy? Tell me in the comments. Image prompt. The protagonist is a woman in her early 30s, her soft brown hair cascading over her shoulders, dressed in a stunning deep red gown that glimmers under the lights of the upscale gala. Her blue eyes sparked with a mix of determination and uncertainty, caught in the drama surrounding her as she stands confidently next to her ally, Jenna. They are elegantly posed amid a backdrop of extravagant glamour, their expressions defiant as they confront Victor Reynolds, a man in a tailored suit with a sharp gaze, revealing both confidence and intrigue. The moment I took center stage at the gala, I felt the weight of my resolve wrap around me like armor. The lights glared down as I prepared for the execution of my meticulously crafted plan. I glanced at Jenna beside me, her confidence bolstering my own. We had drawn the web tight, and now it was time to unfurl it. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, projecting my voice over the hum of chatter. Heads turned, glasses lowered, and conversations faded as an anticipatory silence enveloped the room. I hope you'll indulge me tonight as I unveil the truth behind a man who faked his own death to escape the consequences of his choices, my estranged husband, Alex. Gasps rippled through the crowd, disbelief punctuating the air. I looked squarely at Alex, standing at the bar, his eyebrows shooting up in shock, anger flaring in his eyes. "What the hell are you doing, Margaret?" he yelled over the whispers and murmurs of curiosity. "Simple," I replied, drawing deeper breaths to steady my heart, feeding off the buzz of energy. "I'm here to expose the lies you've wrapped your life in for the past 5 years." "Lies?" His voice dripped with contempt, and I could see that familiar arrogance spinning in his eyes. "You've lost your mind. You think anyone will believe a word you say?" "Oh, they will," I assured him, a calmness washing over me. "I have proof. All the paperwork you thought was buried, all the secrets you kept in the shadows, they will drown you." The crowd shifted, curiosity peaking, and I caught sight of Victor, who stood back, crossing his arms with a knowing smirk. I redirected my focus. "Alex, why don't you share how you faked your death to escape the mounting debts you left in my lap?" "You're making a fool of yourself," he spat, fists clenching at his sides. "Do you really think you can sway these people? Is that so? These people deserve the truth," I continued, allowing the tension to hang palpably in the air. "Just last week, I connected the dots leading back to Victor here, a man you've befriended under your new alias. Did you think I wouldn't find out? That I didn't know your real life? How you dined with criminals while I suffered the consequences?" Alex forced a chuckle, trying to brush off the severity of my accusations. "You're desperate, Margaret. I'm not the bad guy here. You are. You've been clinging to the past, wallowing in self-pity." The crowd was silent, a spotlight illuminating the reality looming over him as my words sank in. I pressed on, refusing to let him slip into his patterns of gaslighting. "Self-pity. It's called survival, something you wouldn't know much about, seeing as you abandoned your responsibilities to live lavishly. We all know you couldn't have managed on your own." He leaned forward, an insidious smile creeping up his face. "You think you're brave, but I see a woman desperate for attention. This whole charade is embarrassing." A collective hush swept over the audience. I had them. They were invested now, and I wouldn't let him reclaim the narrative. I stepped closer, my voice steady and poised, ensuring every word struck a chord. "Look around, Alex. They are not fooled by your facade. They see through the charisma you hide behind. You might have thought you could outrun the truth, but it has a way of resurrecting." "What's dead can't rise, Margaret," he hissed, no longer merely defensive, but seething with rage. "You don't know what you're saying." "Oh, but I do," I replied, conjuring the strength I needed to unfurl the truth. "You might have faked your death, but the debts you left behind are very much alive. You have a trail of deceit that will lead right to you, and I'll ensure every aspect of your life is laid bare." A chuckle erupted from the crowd now, their murmurs morphing into a mixture of disbelief and anticipation. "This isn't over," he roared, words dripping with venom. "You think you can ruin me? You'll ruin yourself first." "But it's already too late, Alex," I said coolly, smiling as I watched the chaos unfold for him. "Tonight, the layers come off. Victor, tell him about the records I dug up on your little operation." Victor glanced at me with reluctant curiosity, his demeanor shifting slightly as the exhilaration of the escalating confrontation caught fire within the room. "Well, Alex," Victor said, an amused crease forming on the edges of his lips, "your past wasn't as hidden as you thought. I wonder how many of your new friends would feel about associating with a dead man." My heart soared as a wave of empowerment washed over me. I turned toward the crowd once more, letting the thrill of control envelop my senses. "Tonight, we're peeling back the layers of deception. Let's take a closer look at how one man thought he could escape the consequences of his actions. This is pathetic. You're committing social suicide," he snapped, his voice quaking with rage. "Maybe, but at least I'm standing up for myself," I replied, my tone forceful and resolute as I sustained the hold over the crowd's attention. "You thought you could escape reality and crush others beneath you, but I won't allow it anymore. You are not above the law, above accountability, or above the people you've hurt." And as those words settled over the room, I felt a wave of confidence surge through me. I had become the architect of my defense, the one wielding the truth, and the night belonged to me. Image prompt. The protagonist is a woman in her early 30s. Her soft brown hair cascading elegantly around her shoulders, wearing a stunning deep red gown that catches the light. Her blue eyes blaze with determination and courage as she stands confidently at the podium, commanding the attention of an elegant gala crowd. With her poised demeanor, she faces her estranged husband, Alex, whose expression is a mix of shock and simmering rage in the backdrop of wealthy patrons frozen in intrigue and disbelief. The sun pierced through my window, illuminating a life I had painstakingly rebuilt since that fateful night at the gala. I was still grappling with the echoes of confrontation. It felt both empowering and deeply unsettling. I had managed to extract myself from the tight grip of my past, severing the chains that had once bound me to Alex. Months had passed. Months filled with weeks of trials, courtroom battles that trickled into a slow agony I lived through repeatedly. But I wasn't alone. Jenna stood as my steadfast ally, rallying behind me as the evidence we collected unraveled Alex's carefully constructed facade. With each hearing, I gained confidence. Every word spoken in that crowded courtroom felt like a hammer landing blows on the walls he built. "And how do you feel about your former wife's claims today?" The lawyer for the prosecution had asked him dismissively, the air vibrating with tension. "I feel she's deluded," he retorted sharply, his voice edged with bitterness as he faced the judge. "I didn't fake anything. This is just an elaborate scheme to ruin my life because she couldn't manage her own." Yet, with each denial, the tide stirred against him. We had shown evidence of his debts. Debts piled high that he had tried to leave untouched, evidence linking him to a network of fraud that stretched further than I could have imagined. His downfall escalated with astonishing speed. One week he was contesting my claims. The next, horrifying headlines showcased his arrest. Our town buzzed with the scandal, whispers intertwining with the crisp morning air, his name becoming synonymous with shame. "Did you hear about Alex?" one neighbor had asked, voice muffled yet clear as I strolled past. "He's in prison for fraud. Can you believe it?" With every pamphlet I received announcing his bankruptcy, public records filled with numbers and broken promises, I could feel the satisfaction coursing through me. The day of his sentencing was one I had waited for with bated breath, a hope simmering as I prepared to witness the culmination of all he had taken from me. Tension filled the courtroom as I took my seat, determined to witness karma in action. The judge leveled his gaze at Alex, and I could sense the weight of judgment pressing down around us like heavy fog. "Mr. Caldwell, you've been found guilty of multiple counts of fraud and will face 5 years in prison," the judge proclaimed, his voice echoing with authority. I leaned forward, refusing to miss a single second. A crime? Alex yelled, disbelief twisting his face into a mask of rage. This is outrageous. You expect me to rot in here for something I didn't do? This is a witch hunt. Enough! You had your chance to tell your side, and the jury has spoken. The judge cut him off, pulling a heavy gavel down to seal the verdict. The sound reverberated through me as it sealed my liberation. I hope you enjoy your time in prison, Alex, I murmured quietly, that hate simmering at last seeming to melt away. A sense of closure washed over me, finally free of his manipulation, his threats, the terror he inspired. I stood taller, the weight of years of carrying guilt and shame rapidly dissipating. In the months that followed, my life transformed. I moved into a new apartment, a cozy one that felt alive with possibilities. The walls were painted the softest shades of cream, radiating warmth and hope. I poured my heart into decorating it, each piece a testament to my journey. Sun-kissed paintings, potted plants, and framed quotes inspiring resilience filled every corner. Look, Margaret, Jenna exclaimed one day, walking into my new sanctuary, her eyes wide like she could hardly believe the transformation. This place is stunning. It feels so... you... Thanks, I smiled, warmth flooding my chest as we shared a joyful laugh. I've never felt freer, and it's all thanks to you. Together we planned for the true future I had yet to embrace. I enrolled in writing courses, finally allowing my voice to escape the chasms built by years of feeling so small. I began to explore the world of self-help blogs, honing in on my experience. My voice resonated with others like me survivors, breaking down the barriers of codependency and rising from the ashes. I found a sense of community and purpose as I opened my heart to stories of others who had been crushed beneath the weight of narcissistic relationships. Friends gathered around me for brunches swirling with laughter, sunlight pouring in, painting a picture of new beginnings. As the months trickled into a year, I transformed my painful journey into a narrative of empowerment. I hosted online workshops and shared my insights, not just to heal, but to help heal others as well. The strings of my past faded, slowly weaving into threads of strength that anchored me beautifully in my present. Each time I heard Alex's name on the news stories of his struggles during his prison sentence, I felt a flicker of satisfaction mingling with pity. The man who once held power over me had been stripped bare, exposed for the world to see. He was just another criminal serving his time. Now, as I sit here in my cozy space with the sun setting beyond my window, casting an amber glow against my wall, I bask in the knowledge that I am more than the trauma I endured. I am a voice, a survivor, no longer seeking closure, but embodying joy and strength. Subscribe for more karma. And as I contemplate what comes next, a thought beckons along the horizon, a new chapter waiting to be written. What happens next for the woman who recaptured her life? Tune in next time for another tale of resilience as I explore the journey of finding love after darkness. Image prompt. The protagonist is a woman in her early 30s, her soft brown hair flowing freely over her shoulders. Illuminated by the golden light streaming through her cozy apartment window, she sits comfortably in a beautifully decorated living space, her blue eyes radiating warmth and confidence. The walls are adorned with personal touches and vibrant colors, creating an inviting atmosphere that contrasts with her once bleak past. Surrounded by potted plants and artwork showcasing themes of growth, the setting embodies hope and renewal.